Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of Dark Powerrr, where we cover everything that happens on AEW Dark Elevation and NWA Powerrr. Now, we were supposed to have an episode last week. I do apologize for that, but last week was very busy for me. For those of you who don't know, I got engaged on Friday to Colleen. Last Friday I got engaged to Colleen on last Friday. There we go. So planning all of that and having all of that transpire did take a little bit of time, so I do apologize. Luckily, there wasn't that much from Dark and Elevation that really stood out. From Dark, the main thing to take away was the promo from Joey Janela telling us that in 2 weeks we would have a no disqualification match between himself and Sonny Kiss. Good promo. I thought it was well done. Janela conveyed a lot of emotion. I think his voice kind of stayed a little too even-keeled during parts of it, but in a way that's kind of good because it's referencing the manic kind of mind state that he's in. This week we are going to have a promo from Sonny Kiss where Janela is going to interrupt and say, next week it's all going down. So that was some good developments for Dark, and those are the things that we like to see. We like to see storylines. We like to see them bringing up everything that is happening. Besides that, there wasn't too much. And on Powerrr, outside of the weird Sol Renaro thing, I don't really think there was much from Powerrr. I actually may be confusing my weeks because of how little has been happening, and that is a trend that is going to continue this week. So before we get into it, guys, remember to hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe for more. Consider joining our Patreon. $3 is the entry-level tier for more content than we are able to show on YouTube. Let's get into it. All right, guys. Elevation, there wasn't too much there that I kind of liked. It just seems to be turning more into squash matches. And while that is generally the theme of Dark and Elevation, at least before, we used to have a lot more character development. And that seems to have transitioned over to Dark. A match that stood out to me on Dark was the opening match between Brock Anderson and Big Shotty Lee Johnson versus the Gun Club, Austin and Colton. The Gun Club are still developing. They're still improving as a tag team, and this is a great way for Brock and for Shotty to get more experience. So not too much that I can find fault with in the match itself. I see where they're going. I see what they're trying to do, and that's really what's most important. Later in the night, we do have a Bear Country match, and after the match, I think it was Bear Bronson is cutting a promo about how, I don't know, it might have been the other one, cutting a promo about how they are a tag team on the rise, and they are issuing an open challenge to any tag team who wants to face off with them. Out comes the Acclaimed to cut a promo and say that they are willing to accept that challenge since every other tag team in AEW seems to be scared of them. And they say that match will happen next week. So something to look forward to. I think that's going to be a good match. I would not be surprised if that is the main event of next week's Dark. Finally, Matt Sydal versus Serpentico was a good match. We seem to say that about the matches that go longer than 3 minutes. And it's kind of surprising because Dark has time. They're taping in front of, they have a live audience. They're taping. They have the time to give these guys and gals a lot more in-ring time. And if you want them to be able to tell long-form stories in matches, they got to develop more in the ring. And part of that development is having a 10, 12, 13-minute match because cardio is important. Being able to dig down deep when you have your ribs are bruised up a little bit is important. So I really wish that they would have longer matches on Dark. You have the time, you have the audience, just do it. What's the big deal? It's just have the matches. But let's turn towards the NWA. This week's episode was a Power Surge episode, and there really isn't that much to write home about. We have a match here between Jaden Roller and Freeman, and this was a good match. It was supposed to be a TV qualifier match, and Jaden Roller is going to pick up the win, but he is kind of really issuing a challenge, but he's talking a lot, jaw-jacking with Tim Storm at ringside on commentary, and they're trying to build this little, I guess, Jaden Roller, Tim Storm, veteran versus rookie storyline. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not that upset about it or anything like that. Like, Tim Storm's not really doing anything. Jaden Roller is kind of the flavor of the month, so to speak. So I'm sure that Tim will be picking up the win again. But that's the thing. It's kind of working backwards because they had the no disqualification match already. Like, they had a match that was supposed to just be a singles match at By Any Means Necessary. Jaden wanted it turned into a no DQ match, and Tim Storm said, well, fine. And then he beat him. So it is kind of working backwards. So I don't know. I think that while I'm not upset at what they're trying to do, I think the execution can be a little bit better, or they need to find a new angle to spice it up, because if Storm's already beaten him in a no DQ match, why do I need to see anything further? I will say that overall the episode of Power Surge was pretty good. They had some nice comedy moments with what was happening in Gallows' house, and the interaction between Velvet and Austin Idol. It's starting to grow on me. It's still pretty annoying, but it is starting to grow on me. And finally, the last thing that stood out was this one here, where we have one member of the Fixers, Jay Bradley, taking on, I think his name was Dryo or Riot, something like that. But it was a nice athletic match. It had a good back and forth, and Fixer picks up the win, as well he should. I will say that I'm hoping they got some more stuff taped in the tank, because this was a kind of a scrape the barrel kind of episode of Power Surge. There wasn't even much in the way of promos or any kind of storyline development, and usually Power Surge is good for something in that regard. They could have filmed something along the lines of Latimer trying to get to Nick's house or something like that. Yeah, it's kind of a little obvious, because we saw Deanna do it to Mickey in Impact, and obviously Mickey and Nick live the same place. But still, something to that effect would have been nice, just to get a little bit more meat into off the bone when it comes to the Latimer versus Aldis feud, which really is the top feud for the NWA. Something else would have been even a pre-recorded message from Matt Cardona about Trevor Murdoch. We're seeing that feud start to build up. We're seeing the things between Murdoch and Mike Knox, and I don't know, just would have been kind of better. Sometimes you see some clear opportunities that a company has, and when there's easy layups and they don't take them, it makes you wonder, what's the decision process? And maybe it's one of those things where, you know, Billy Corgan and his vision board, if that's what he uses or whatever he uses, he just was like, hey, we're going to gloss over the next couple weeks because it's the end of the year. But that's perfect timing to use stuff to your advantage. And then if people miss it because it is the holidays, then they can always go back and watch it. And you can always reference it, and people can then go back. You can always re-show parts of the clip. Things like that work. It's all designed about building momentum, and sometimes you got to wonder, why would you want to take the foot off the gas when you need all the mileage that you can get? So that's the end of my driving analogies and metaphors. But thank you guys for tuning in. This was, like I said, not too much, not too crazy of stuff to write home about. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. As always, hug your loved ones. The holidays are important, whatever you celebrate, and even if you don't celebrate anything, it's still a time of togetherness. And as we have this pandemic that is now raging on and continuing to rage on. All the time that we can have with family is incredibly important. So remember that, guys. That's why my sign-off phrase is what it is. And since it is what it is, let me get to it. Remember, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will